It works.
Ja, das ist an.
It works.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to this session. My name is Vincent Berruteau. I'm the head of the energy unit at the Executive Agency for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, which is managing various programs on behalf of the European Commission, including large parts of Horizon 2020. And my unit in particular is managing the energy efficiency calls under the energy challenge of Horizon 2020. I'd like to welcome you to this session, which aims at co-designing the strategic plan for Horizon Europe, which will then guide the drafting of the work program and then the calls for proposals for the first 4 years of the program between 2021 and 2024. Our session this afternoon is one of 23 sessions dedicated to Cluster 5 of Horizon Europe, the cluster dealing with climate, energy, and mobility. In this session, we'll focus on renewable energies and energy efficiency, with a particular focus on the local level, the community level. And this is a topic that has gained particular importance on the political scene, and of course will continue to do so since the new Commission has decided to make Europe climate neutral by 2050. It's also an area which receives growing support from citizens. We've seen millions of them making their voice heard on the streets. And a recent Eurobarometer showed that 9 out of 10 Europeans agree that the youth energy policy priorities should be to ensure secure, clean and affordable energy for all Europeans. The basis of our discussion today will be, on the one hand, of course, the legislative package on Horizon Europe, which the Parliament and Council provisionally agreed on in April 2019. And on the other hand, the strategic first orientations put forward by the Commission and which were subject to an online consultation. And to kick off that discussion, we've got about an hour. We invited 5 speakers who represent different parts of the society and all have something meaningful to say about the subject that we're considering this afternoon. On my left-hand side is Jula Paulus, a newly elected member of the European Parliament for the Greens. Next to her is Andrea Vogt, Director General of the European Partnership for Energy and the Environment, the voice of the refrigeration, air conditioning and heat pump industry in Europe. And we have next to her Simon Perrault, Deputy Director at l'ITEN, an institute of the Commissariat à l'Énergie Atomique focused on the development of innovative technologies for energy transition. On his left-hand side, we've got Dirk van Zinstian, a board member of EcoPower, a Belgian renewable energy cooperative with nearly 50,000 members. He's also president of Rescop.eu, the European Federation of Renewable Energy Cooperatives. And then the last speaker on the left here, on your right, is Daniel Kuef, the mayor of Languet. He's been the mayor of Languet for 20 years. It's a village in Brittany, France, and I must say has become quite famous recently for its position regarding environment protection. So we'll hear about these people, but we'll hear about you also. And this is a co-creation process. So we've got a Slido. You need to log on and go to slido.com. Our code today is hashtag R900. You can ask questions there. I will give also the floor to some of you in the room. Let's be clear, it's not about asking questions on the strategic plan because we're co-creating it, so there's nothing that's decided yet. It's more a matter of expressing what you would like to see in the strategic plan, or you can also, of course, react to the statements that will be given by our 5 speakers this afternoon. So I'm turning now to our first speaker, who's a member of the European Parliament, Ms. Viola Paulus, and I'll ask her for about 5 minutes to set the political scene and tell us, in her view, why it is essential to support technological leadership in renewables and energy efficiency at EU level. Julia.
Oh, I've got a mic, I think. Okay, shall I stand up or shall I just, I don't know if... Okay. I just made a few things with my speech because I don't know who of you turned on TV yesterday and listened to Greta Thunberg's speech at the Climate Action Summit in New York. And if you haven't done so, I strongly recommend that you do. I've never heard her so angry, so sad, and she has got every reason to be angry and sad at us because, as she says, science is crystal clear for 30 years, but we just fail to act. And it's a very, very big task which is lying in front of us, and I'll just try to turn this a bit away from, because it's better like that. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Greta mentioned the carbon budget, and the carbon budget approach is what climate... No? Okay. Like this? Oh. It's difficult. No? Okay. The carbon budget approach is what actually or maybe I could just take it off and use the open mic. Oh, I don't know. I just thought it was okay. Sorry. The carbon budget approach, which Greta mentioned, is what climate science is turning to after, for a long time, talking to us about years where we have to be climate neutral, because it's essential that we only release a limited amount of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And it doesn't matter whether we do so until 35 or until 2050 or until 2200, whatever. It's just the total amount which matters. And as we have done not enough in those 4 years since the Paris Agreement, our carbon budget has already shrunk from 420 gigatons to 350 gigatons because we're burning fossil fuels so quickly. And now you ask, well, why is she telling us all that? Because speed matters. Speed matters. As quickly as we can reduce our emissions, then we have more time in the end when it becomes harder, because there are things which are easy. We have the solutions like renewables, like energy efficiency. We have the technological solutions. We have to put them in place. And I calculated a scenario together with some scientists using a very sophisticated tool, and we found out that if we don't step up in efficiency very quickly, we need very much more renewable energy to cover all the energy demand we have. And funnily, the European Union is not the only region in the world who has to tackle this problem. And now I come to the point of my speech. If the European Union sets itself at the forefront of renewable energy, energy efficiency technology in research, but of course also in business, then we also have a great economical profit on that, because of course everyone will come to us and say, this is a great technology, we want to have it. And we shouldn't do the same mistake which we did with solar, because what happened? We had the renewable energy law in Germany, which created a big demand for solar photovoltaics. And China said, oh great, this is a technology which will become very, very important in future, because of course already in 2000, climate change was very well known. And so China said, everyone will want to buy this. So let's take this opportunity. So they bought the machines to build the solar panels from German industry and set up own businesses in China. It was their industrial policy, which was very smart. And they also gave gave money to those businesses, free of interest, all that, in order to become the world market leader on photovoltaics, and they were very good in that. And so, why should the European Union just let opportunities go? We've got so fantastic research going on in our universities, in our businesses. Why should we not go for it also in an industrial policy linking research and business in order to become a sustainable economy? Ursula von der Leyen has proposed a Green Deal. At the moment, everyone is trying to figure out what's going to be in the Green Deal. I'd say we should make the proof of every investment which we have. How is it working concerning climate change? How is it working concerning biodiversity? How is it working concerning sustainable development goals? Because we're all in this together, not only in this union, but also on this planet. And so I think it's our duty to do our very best to enhance a healthy, sustainable life of humanity on this planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Paulus, for insisting on the urgency of the situation and insisting as well on the importance of having a smart industrial policy linked to these questions of research and innovation. We heard about your opinion from the European level. I'm going down now at the local level, the very local level, and I'm turning to the Mayor QF, Mr. QF, who's the mayor, has been the mayor of Languet for 20 years now. And I ask him a slightly different question. To what extent have you benefited from research and innovation for clean energy activities at local level? And is there something that you've been missing? Mr. QF will talk in French, but an interpreter will translate in English afterwards.
Thank you very much. Notre village vise à l'autonomie énergétique, c'est-à-dire que ça concerne la mobilité, ça concerne l'énergie dans les bâtiments, ça concerne l'alimentation. Vise à l'autonomie énergétique, ça veut dire pour nous essayer de produire localement l'énergie dont nous avons besoin.
Wait.
Our village, has one very clear objective, which is to achieve energy autonomy, and we want to do this through mobility, through energy and energy efficiency in buildings, and also through food.
Pour l'instant, nous produisons 100% de notre énergie électrique pour les bâtiments communaux et l'éclairage public.
For the time being, we actually produce 100% of the electricity needed by public buildings and roads.
Et la loi nous permet actuellement de pouvoir produire de l'électricité pour nos habitants.
And the law now allows us to produce electricity for our inhabitants.
Nous avons bénéficié d'une ingénierie locale avec des entreprises locales qui nous ont donc conduit à travailler sur ces trackers qui sont en fait, vous connaissez certainement, qui sont en fait des sortes de tournesols qui suivent le soleil et qui produisent de l'énergie locale.
And together with some local companies, we developed together some and worked on trackers. I'm sure you know what trackers are. These work like sunflowers, really. They follow the course of the sun from beginning to end and get energy out of the sun while they're following it.
Nous n'avons strictement aucun problème technique avec l'électron qui est transféré au réseau et qui est consommé localement. Notre objectif, c'est que l'électron produit soit directement consommé au plus près des besoins de la commune, ce qui fait que le stockage, en fait, c'est les habitants qui se répartissent la production d'énergie en fonction de leurs besoins.
So we have no technical problems with the electrons at all. They are sent directly to the consumers, and it is the villagers themselves who store the energy and share the energy according to each individual need.
Donc ce tracker, si vous voulez, est monté localement, mais nous avons quand même un problème, c'est la production de ces panneaux n'est pas même européenne, donc ce qui nous pose une sérieuse question, même s'il y a quelques années, depuis quelques années, nous avons quand même des panneaux qui sont 100% recyclables.
So we have a slight problem with these trackers to get them to correspond to European standards, but for a number of years now, we have had a tracker which is 100% recyclable.
Le deuxième problème, le plus important, c'est ça. C'est toute l'administration qu'il faut mettre en place, toute la paperasse inventée par l'État français pour produire de l'électricité, mais surtout la vendre à nos habitants. Donc c'est une ingénierie administrative absolument colossale, et en particulier le fait que la décision ne se prend pas au niveau de l'État français, de permettre qu'à partir du moment où nous produisons localement et que nous mettons de l'énergie locale dans le réseau public, d'avoir des taxes inférieures, puisque ces taxes sont légitimes dans la mesure où le réseau est beaucoup moins sollicité grâce à nos énergies renouvelables. Donc vous voyez, il y a la paperasse. Donc ne venez pas habiter en France.
And the second biggest problem is this chart, which shows the amount of administration, the amount of paperwork we have to undertake, which is made compulsory by the French state. This is when you wish to produce and sell electricity to your inhabitants. You have to go through this huge amount of what I would call administrative engineering. If indeed the whole tax issue, if you produce yourself and feed your excess production into the network, there's a whole tax issue which abounds. And for all these reasons, I would say, do not come and live in France.
Thank you very much. It's good to have the experience on the ground. And since we're talking about experience at local level, I'd like to turn to you, Dirk, because you also have experience on the ground. You've benefited from research and innovation. Can you explain us to what extent you've benefited from it and what's missing?
Yeah, actually, it works. No? Yeah. Actually, there have been energy cooperatives around since the very beginning of the introduction of electricity. So some of our members are more than a century old. But we came across then it was called Intelligent Energy Europe, the program before Horizon 2020. We had a meeting in the European Parliament. It was facilitated by the Green Fraction. And we brought for the first time together, I think it was 2008, people from across Europe in the European Parliament who were active in energy cooperatives. And there were some people from the administration. Afterwards they came to us. They said, "Well, do you know there are these research programs? It's called Intelligent Energy Europe, and later it was Horizon 2020." We didn't know, and we applied, and we had to apply again because we didn't know how to do it. So we actually started using these programs to bring people together across Europe, to share knowledge. To also now we are active in like in WiseGrid. It's about smart meters, about demand response, and we gain a lot of knowledge and we share it among our members. And that's the main advantage, that we can share knowledge. And this brings us immediately to one of the problems, that we are asked to participate in certain programs, in research innovation. But the actual result belongs to the companies, although they work with public money. They find us very good partners because we offer them test sites. We can offer them a village where one of our members is the DSO, and with 300 smart meters, you can supply the whole. You can give in every household a smart meter, and you can test it. So we are very good for offering test sites, but the result afterwards is never ours. We can never co-own it. So in the future, when we will introduce new project proposals, I think we will try to get it into cooperative hands so that we can share. So to give you one example, it was never in one of the research projects yet, but a few of our members, quite a lot of our members are interested in electrical car sharing, electrical vehicle sharing, and all of them were setting up apps to do it and making all the same mistakes. Now we have one European cooperative that owns the app, that develops the app, and we share it among all our members. And everyone who wants to set up electrical vehicle sharing can join and use the app and co-own it and co-develop it. So that's the cooperative way of approaching research and innovation.
Thanks for insisting on this benefit of the program and the future program for the collaboration between the different actors. And it's interesting to have the final users in the consortia.
It's very hard in the negotiations in the contract. So they're hard, and they know how to do it. They have lawyers to do it, and we don't.
I'm turning to someone now who has a lot of experience in participating in European projects in the field of research and innovation, and that's Simon Perrault. Can you answer the same question from your point of view?
Yes, so I will give the point of view of a research organization. So our job is to develop technologies together with European companies to accelerate this energy transition. And I would like to give an example of a research project that we performed at the local scale and more specifically at the regional scale. So this project called Highway, and this was a project supported by both the Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region in France and the European Union. And the goal of this project was to develop technologies to convert renewable electricity into hydrogen, and then to use this hydrogen in the transport sector. So we talk about sector coupling, so how to couple the renewable electricity sector with the transport sector in order to decarbonize this transport sector. So in this project, we had several partners. We had CNR, which is the largest renewable electricity producer in France, and we had also Air Liquide and Engie. But we had also two innovative SMEs in the region. So one is Symbio, developing hydrogen fuel cells, and the other one is McPhee, developing electrolyzers. And what Symbio did is that they developed this hydrogen range extender. So basically, this is a device that you can integrate into an electric vehicle in order to increase the driving range of the electric vehicle, and to satisfy the needs of a wide range of customers. And what was interesting in this project is that we could test around 50 vehicles in the region, both in Grenoble and in Lyon. And so this was really a very good starting point for Symbio, which was a rather small company at that time, in order to test the technologies in a real environment, at a real scale, and also to develop further the technology. And I think also what was good in this project concerning this local dimension that you were mentioning is that the consortium included both large companies like Air Liquide, like Engie, like CNR, but also innovative SMEs like Symbio and McPhee. And this really helped to create an innovation ecosystem at the local scale. And we think that this kind of local innovation ecosystem is really important to be sure that we create jobs and added value at the local scale, at the regional scale in this case. And actually, this innovation ecosystem is still very active. So very recently, Symbio was acquired by Michelin, which is a large company also based in the same region. And also this highway project led to a new project, which is even more ambitious, which is called the Zero Emission Valley in the Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region. And the goal of this project is to deploy around 1,000 hydrogen vehicles together with 15 electrolyzers, which will convert renewable electricity or low-carbon electricity into hydrogen in order to decarbonize the transport sector.
Quite interesting developments. Good luck with this. I'm turning now to more the demand side. And Andrea, you're presenting refrigeration, air conditioning, heat pumps. How did you benefit also about research and innovation? What's missing in your opinion?
Okay. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. So I hope it won't explode my time budget of 3 minutes, but I'd just like to say 2 words about cooling as such, why I'm sitting here, because cooling was much of a forgotten sector in the past years, and this has now changed. It has changed because we see rising temperatures, because we see heat waves, and because we see people having using air conditioning, for example, to make this better supportable. So cooling has made its way in the news, both in developing countries but also in Europe. And just to give you a number, the IEA, for example, estimates that by 2050, 20% of the global electricity demand will be for cooling. And the European Heating and Cooling Strategy says that by 2030, the number of air conditioners and refrigerators will have doubled in Europe. So it's increasing, it's there, and such growth will certainly impact the energy consumption and also the emission if nothing happens, if we just continue a business as usual. So what is happening is that the media, basically, they focus just on this negative impact, or which is perceived as a negative impact, but they forget completely about the benefits of cooling for the society in terms of health, medicine, comfort, well-being. There's a lot of applications for cooling, actually. And I think that's, in a way, also my answer to the question, which is more about a gap and not about a benefit, because you were saying in what way we were benefiting from the program. It's more about a gap, actually, because cooling is depicted as a problem and not as a part of the solution, although cooling is a part of the solution to achieve carbon neutrality as well in Europe. So in a nutshell, we don't suffer from a lack of innovation or of sustainable technologies. There are a lot of efficient and sustainable technologies around. They are readily available. They are based on what was mentioned several times, on energy efficiency and also on renewables. But our problem is that they are not deployed yet. They still have to be scaled up. And the big question is, why? Why are they not deployed? So what we really need is an integrated approach where you don't just look at the product as in itself, but at the system as such, where a lot of things come together at a local level, at a district level, at a city level. And that's today just not happening. Whether we talk about heat recovery, where you would recover heat from refrigeration systems, or demand response, or thermal storage, thermal energy use, it's just not enough deployed yet. And why is that the case? Because there is a big lack of awareness, actually. There is a lack of awareness both at policy level, but also at consumer level. These solutions are available, but they are not used. And the fact that everybody thinks in silos does not make that any easier, because if we talk integration, then it means also bringing stakeholders together, and that's also one of the points of the Horizon 2020 program. So definitely cooling needs to be seen as a part of the wider energy systems. We need also the power suppliers, for example, at the table, and we need to have incentives, drivers to make it happen. So just to give an example, why would a consumer, for example, why would you invest into an equipment, into a product which can do demand response if you have no incentive whatsoever to do so? Or why would a supermarket recover waste heat from a refrigeration unit if there is no benefit for the supermarket? Or a heat pump owner to use his heat pump as a thermal storage solution if there is no driver, no incentive, no knowledge? So that's where we really need support, and that's where there is still a big gap. And coming back to what Jutta was saying, I'm actually just coming back from New York, from the Climate Summit, and that's why I wrote this down, because I'm still a bit jet-lagged. And I heard Greta's speech. And you couldn't listen to that without getting, what's the word in English? Goosebumps. It was really alarming. And you would think, and that's also the overwhelming message I heard there, you would think all those solutions, all those technologies are ready. We can make that target. And the conclusion of the summit was actually a positive one. It was that the target is achievable, the 1.5 degrees. But that we really have to act now, and that we have to deploy the solutions, and that we have to reach the people on the ground and make sure that all those solutions are deployed, are scaled up, are used. So really, to conclude my message, and also to really emphasize that gap that we are seeing in terms of cooling, but it's a general one, I think, is that cooling is essential and it will grow. The technologies are there. They can help achieving carbon neutrality. They are based on energy efficiency and renewables. We have a good framework in Europe with the clean energy package, and also with the F-gas regulation if we look at the refrigerants. Now we need to scale it up. We need to implement that legislation, enforce it, take an integrated approach, and step up the communication and the awareness raising so that it's really happening. And if there is any way of using programs in Europe to support this, then it would be highly welcome, really.
Thank you, Andrea, for insisting on the need to deploy the existing technologies. I think that echo a little bit what Mr. Kuev was saying on the administrative barriers and the market failures in general. And that's something which will be addressed in future programs, if not in our RNI program, in other programs like LIFE. I'm turning to the room now, and I think before I ask one question to our speakers, I'd like to ask you in the audience if you have any comment on what was just said previously, or if you have any comment on what's missing, what's been missing in the current program. Yes, please. So we've got a second microphone here, which is not working, so I'll give you mine, I think. If you could introduce yourself shortly, and then your comment, and stay brief. Thank you.
So, my name is Laurent Zibel. I work as policy advisor at Industry All European Trade Union, which is the European Federation of trade unions in manufacturing. A set of questions regarding technologies that may be worth considering. In industry as such, we're talking also about energy efficiency and specifically about process efficiency. And here there's a question about how far are we from the thermodynamic limits. It's not really worth working on improving a process if it's already almost there. We can't do anything further. Looking at buildings, there may be an increasing need to protect them against solar heat and therefore in order to reduce cooling needs. Regarding in terms of technologies also, solar heating, cooling and cooking may be worth considering. There are frugal technologies that may have an interest. And finally, in terms of renewable energies, I don't know if this is in the scope of what we're talking about, there's a lot of talk about biomass. Here the question may be, and when we look at carbon budget, whether this biomass should be kept on the ground to store carbon instead of being burnt.
I don't know if I can. Thank you, Massimo Busuoli. I'm the representative in Brussels of the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, which is the biggest in Norway. Of course, I follow with interest the discussion about deploying the technologies, because in our university you are currently working a lot in deploying energy technologies, especially hydropower, which is, of course, a leading technology for Norway in low-income countries. And what we are facing is the problem of, in reality, creating the conditions for the technologies in such countries to deploy. So, of course, research and innovation is important, but we also think that special attention should be given in supporting the creation of courses taking to local population being capable to manage the technology. In this way, we can, of course, create a market locally on one side. On the other side, we can also, if you want, fight a bit the migration, because you're creating working positions in countries which have this kind of a problem, and we facilitate the industry, European industry, in the capability to transfer technology to countries which in principle can boom in a second phase. And on a second comment, as everyone spoke about its technology, I would like also to underline that it's time probably to take again in the club of technologies which is worth to invest in the hydropower. Hydropower technology has now grown a lot. It's not anymore a storage technology. It's also a technology capable to contribute to the flexibility of the system with a very fast reaction. So there are still open issues in research and innovation which could be followed, and probably it's time to consider to take it as another of the keywords in the set plan, for example. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. We're taking note of all your comments, of course.
Robert Droop, Netherlands Ministry of Environment. I would like to pick up on the previous speaker on biotic resources, which is bio-based resources, which is environmentally burdening, but also there are enormous amounts of abiotic resources needed for the energy transition. And I would suggest that research urgently needs to address material effective and alternatives and full recyclable alternatives, basically based on abundantly available materials. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Raj Kelly from UIT in Norway. Just continuing from the comments of previous speakers and the comments from the audience, I think we all talk about the energy efficiency, and as the previous speaker said, as far as thermodynamic efficiency and the efficiency of, say, building energy in buildings, we have reached the limits. And the other thing is we never speak about the material efficiencies. Okay, especially with electric cars and the new technologies, there is pressure on the precious materials, precious metals, which may again we will have a scarcity of these materials if they are used in abundance. And the other point is, our world is a hydrocarbon world, and we will always have waste which is based on hydrocarbons, bio-waste, biodegradable or non-bio. And the research should also be escalated or done more in these to reutilize these materials. We already do some recycling of biodegradable waste into energy, but there are other methods also to treat the non-biodegradable waste. For example, plastic, which is really becoming a nuisance. And no one is thinking about how to get rid of plastics. We cannot just ban plastic in one shot, and when there are not enough materials to replace. We are talking about the paper and other, but then there will be scarcity of these materials. The main thing is how we treat our waste and treat in such a way to make new materials and also energy, gasification or incineration. All these are technologies, science is there, technologies are there. So what we need is the integration of these to implement these.
Thank you. I think I'll come back to the audience later on because we're running out of time. Just a question to the last speaker. Have you answered the public consultation on the orientations of Horizon 2020, the online consultation? No. Okay. So you still have time for doing it. And I'd like to turn to that public consultation because that's a very important process. The Commission drew a number of ideas, orientations for the future program, and put them on the website and open an online consultation and ask the people what they thought of it. And so we've just got now preliminary results because the consultation is still open. And I'd like to just give you a few first results on it. First of all the Horizon Europe clusters, Cluster 5 on energy, climate and mobility was the most cited by the respondents when they were asked about the area of work or interest. In general, there was a very strong support for research and innovation addressing climate action and environment protection. There was a strong support also for an adequate balance between research and innovation and for fostering collaboration between actors in higher education, research, innovation, business throughout the whole of Europe. Significant support also for the targeted impacts and the orientations that were outlined in the orientations paper. Many of the respondents, there were 6,000 respondents to the public consultation, and many of them commented that certain themes like climate change, for instance, should be considered as cross-cutting, meaning beyond their individual place in a given cluster. And many also emphasize the need for exploiting synergies across clusters. And I think what the last speaker was saying, I think, illustrate this. And for cluster 5, more specifically, so on climate, energy, and mobility, many respondents also asked that the skills gap be sufficiently addressed. And I think the comment from Norway earlier on was a little bit addressing the same point. You need to have proper skills along the whole value chain if you want technologies and innovation to come to the market. I will let the audience comment on these points or on the orientations paper in general, but I'd like to turn to my speakers here and ask them whether they want to say anything about these first results or the paper in general. Andrea first.
Yeah, I'd just like to come back on the last point you raised on the skills along the value chain. So that's one of our top priorities as well, and it's very, very relevant for the cooling sector as well. First of all, because there is a big lack of people, generally speaking, when we talk about installers. They're just not enough, and I think that's a general remark, not only for cooling, but generally speaking. And second, they need to adapt, actually, their curriculum, what they learn in the schools. It needs to be adapted to the evolving market. It's unfortunately very static still. All the digitalization, all the new things that are coming on, it's not necessarily part of what they learn in the schools. So what we would really need is also having this continuously updated and upgraded, and you could also think that by doing so it makes the profession more attractive, because it makes it more high-tech, it makes it more relevant, it makes it more tangible so to young people. So that's definitely something, I think, which is very important.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. Great. You emphasized that most of the comments went to cluster 5, emphasizing also climate, energy, mobility, and I think we also see, as you mentioned, people taking to the streets because action is so imminent to take now. But I'd like to turn to pillar 2 of the preliminary Horizon Europe structure, because in pillar 2 we've got culture, creativity, and inclusive society. And from what we just discussed about people just not acting as would be sensible in order to have a sustainable life, I think we really have to look into culture. We really have to look into sociology. I don't know if it's the English word also. So how can we bring this better into society? Because of course everyone says, well, if I alone change something, nothing will happen because I'm so alone. But on the other side, I don't know, many of you probably saw these 2 pictures yesterday from August 2018 when Greta Thunberg sat in front of Swedish Parliament alone, and then from September 19 when 4 million people took to the streets. And so I think this example shows that one person can make a difference, but we need to bring the thought better to society. And I think also it's a cultural issue, because we are locked in our evolutionary heritage, because for hundreds of thousands of years our ecological niche as Homo sapiens was your cat's food. There were cave lions, there were saber-toothed tigers, and they all thought, oh, humans, that's great. No claws, no fur, it's wonderful. And so this is the situation our brain has adapted to. And now we have to find out very quickly how we can take into account the environment. And I think we need research for that.
That's very interesting. And in orientations document, you will see also priorities on consumers. I mean, there's a whole chapter on demand-side management and a particular chapter on consumers and changing habits, raising awareness, empowering consumers. Mm-hmm. Dirk.
Yeah. So what we as cooperatives are doing to speed up the energy transition in order to enable us to fight climate change, is that we actually we have to go from door to door and take citizens by the hand. This morning I had a telephone call with people from the EIB, so I've been writing a ELENA proposal, aggregating projects from 30 municipalities here in the neighborhood of Brussels, all of them too small to be able to reach their threshold of 30 million euro. And so we are aggregating this, and actually what we are asking money for is what we are doing now with volunteers, but that's not enough. We have to have some professional support for them. We really go from door to door and helping people insulate their homes, telling them about possibilities of heat pumps, about cooling. And we have to conquer street after street, neighborhood after neighborhood. And this is a socio-economic change. So we have to change our economy as well. So the capitalist economy is ruining our planet. Is changing the climate. We have a very good European invention. It's the cooperative model. And we have to go to a cooperative society, a cooperative economy. And that's what we as energy cooperatives, we're striving for. We're organizing ourselves on a European scale. In a few weeks, I'm in Rwanda. We are trying to organize this on a world scale. And also there in Africa, they they have to skip our mistakes, and they have to go to a decentralized energy system immediately, not starting with coal and not even gas. And here in Europe, we still have to convince people that we have to skip gas as well, even in Eastern Europe.
Thank you very much. Mr. QF, you wanted to add something?
Oui, dans notre village, on a l'habitude de prendre une phrase de Jacques Ellul, qui est le théoricien de l'écologie, qui disait la politique, c'est avoir le choix entre plusieurs solutions, mais encore faut-il que ces solutions existent vraiment.
In our village, we often quote Jacques Ellul, who's a well-known theoretician in environmental issues, and he always used to say that politics is about having a choice between different solutions, but for that to be possible, these different solutions actually have to exist.
Cela veut dire pour nous que c'est le projet politique qui commande et non pas la technologie. Ce n'est pas la technologie qui doit faire le projet politique. Donc c'est un élément très important pour nous parce que nous avons changé depuis 3 ans de paradigme, nous avons renoncé au développement durable parce que le développement durable nous amenait toujours à essayer d'être le moins impactant possible pour la planète et la santé. Là, nous avons changé de paradigme et nous nous sommes dit, est-ce que nous pourrions avoir une politique éco-bénéficiante, c'est-à-dire tout ce que l'on fait puisse apporter un bénéfice à l'environnement et à la santé.
So, in fact, about 3 years ago, we decided on a complete change of paradigm in our village, and we simply decided that sustainable development was not the solution, because sustainable development simply means to have the least impact possible on the environment, on health, etc., and that instead we should replace this policy of sustainable development with a completely new concept, which is eco-beneficial policy, which means that everything benefits from the activities we have.
Nous sommes arrivés ainsi à créer, grâce à des éco-conceptions, des maisons avec une carte d'identité. Et ces maisons, dans 100 ans, ne produiront aucun déchet, 0 déchet, et seront 100% recyclables. Et donc c'est une façon de voir les choses qui nous amène à du low-tech dans la conception. Et en particulier d'essayer de travailler sur des architectures qui se passent volontiers de techniques. Je pense en particulier aux techniques qui sont très coûteuses en termes d'énergie, que sont les ventilations, par exemple dans les maisons, que sont l'aération, que sont la climatisation. Et nous avons signé, la commune a signé le manifeste de la frugalité heureuse en architecture, qui est proposé par le grand architecte Philippe Madec, qui est breton, mais qui travaille aussi à Bruxelles.
And so we have now started designing houses which actually have an identity card. And these houses in 100 years' time will still be producing zero waste, and they will be 100% recyclable. So our move is towards what we call low-tech design. The idea is to design architecture, to design buildings which produce no waste, which need very little technology, such as the need for air conditioning. And we've also undertaken to sign a manifesto, which is called the Manifeste de la Frugalité Heureuse en Architecture, or the Manifesto for Happy Frugality in Architecture, which was developed by a well-known architect in France, who is from Brittany, in fact.
Thank you very much. The subject of frugal innovation is quite interesting, and I think it's an interesting common as well. I think we could have an interesting discussion between you and Andrea on this topic of cooling and the use of technologies. Simon, the last comment on this.
Yes. So very quickly, I would like to come back to what Mrs. Paulus said on the industrial policy, because I think it's very important. Of course, it will be very nice if we succeed the energy transition by deploying technological solutions or low-tech solutions. But also it will be good to maintain a strong industry in Europe, because if we don't have industry anymore, there will be no jobs for our citizens. And to do that, I think it will be good that the Horizon Europe program supports strategic value chains. So we all know that in any given industry sector, if the full value chain is not represented in Europe, and if one particular segment in the value chain is missing, or if several segments are missing, then the value chain will be weakened, and then at the end the full value chain will leave Europe and move elsewhere. So recently there has been, I think, a very interesting European initiative on batteries, so the European Battery Alliance, to strengthen the full value chain, so starting from raw materials, advanced materials, battery cells, battery packs, battery systems. And there is also a strong research and innovation effort to support all the different segments of this value chain. And I think it will be interesting in Horizon Europe to replicate this in other strategic value chain, and especially in the energy sector, because this is a strategic sector where we need to have a kind of technology independence. And for example, we could think about the renewable energy generation sector. This is what we are talking about now. And what we can see is that today in Horizon 2020 there is already quite a lot of support for, let's say, the downstream part of the value chain. So there are a lot of calls for proposals for system integration, smart grids, how to integrate renewable energies into the power system. But it will be good also in Horizon Europe to support more widely the full value chain, and especially the upstream part of the value chain, so typically the materials or the components in sectors such as wind power or photovoltaics. Because if we don't support the full value chain, especially by research and innovation, but also by other means, then we can be sure that there will be no more industry in Europe in some time. Yeah.
Yeah, point taken, very important, thank you.
Yeah.
And example of battery, very interesting. Turning to the, I think, yes, there's one comment here, but I think I had promised to the people at the back to take the floor. If you can be very short in your statement, please.
I'll try. My name is Hege Brenda. I'm from Norwegian University of Science and Technology. I'm just commenting on Mr. Busiol and also on the comments on bringing the power industry to the table, because I think it's really important in order to take leadership and management in the transition to a climate-friendly renewable system. We also need to utilize existing systems, which means that we cannot always go for a new technology, maybe sometimes you need to innovate on the existing technology, because in many cases it's very well implemented, you have a very sound basis of knowledge, and you have managed a lot of the challenges that new technologies are facing. So I'm just saying that in that sense, hydropower is such a technology which is highly efficient, highly implemented, also have a high possibility to be further developed in order to enable the renewable system in the future.
Hi, my name is Dennis Osolva. I work for a company called Immaterial. My only comment is I think we need to be much more ambitious in setting targets, because you talk about we have cooling technology and they're not being scaled up. Why not? Because there's no incentive to do so. But if we put a law, say, you know, your performance coefficient has to be at least 10, you'll get that. And you talk about, well, we're at the thermodynamic limit, but we're not. We're at the thermodynamic limit of what we do now. And if you say you have to do something better, then people will innovate something better. But it requires leadership. And when you look at Greta, what she's saying is, guys, we can't just keep going along with incremental. We have to totally change the game. So I think that's a challenge.
Very valid comment. Coming to the front now, I think there are two people waiting for the microphone.
Well, I would just like to witness from my experience. Marie Latour, some people know me, I've been in Renewables since 2002. I worked at EPIA, the Photovoltaic Industry Association, until I got fired in 2014, simply because we had no European industry anymore and no budget to pay the employees of the association. We would have had a strong European industry policy. Probably this could have been prevented, because the research, and I saw it from 2002 to 2014, the research was done in Europe, but the manufacturing went outside. And so I believe if we take this really into account in the research and innovation phase, looking how to strengthen the collaboration with between research and industry and ensure the industry of Europe can take over the research done in Europe, we could prevent such situation for other sectors. And what is happening in the battery sector is certainly something that can help, and I hope it had existed in solar at the time.
Yeah, hi there, it's Aidan Cronin from ETIP Wind. I'd like to concur a little bit with Simon's view. I think it's important for Europe. We have so many aspirations, we have so many goals, but there's quite a big disconnect between the Horizon 2020 and achieving those goals. So what we need is a game plan, and we need to say, okay, I don't think we should be afraid of trying new technologies. I think that's what's going to drive us in the future. I think we're going to have to challenge. I mean, if you look at the amount China is putting in research compared to us, I mean, you're talking factors of thousands in some areas. So I think we need to challenge our concepts now. And we get a lot of I think that everybody say, oh, we have to make the young people. I think the young people are very, very aware. I think it's actually the people in this room and the population in general that need to get educated. If we do not move, A, we won't have any industry, and B, we may not have any environment to live in. So I would like a connect between what Horizon 2020 is doing and a game plan and our future on selling technology, not only to Europe, it's a global problem. So if we become aces in solving the problem here, we can also sell that technology to other people.
Absolutely. We have time for a last comment if you want. Yeah, a very last one, because they're making signs. I think there's another session afterward.
Well, I can be the representative of the young researchers here in the room here, Francesco Reda, VTT. I like to add puzzling keywords there, which is localization or localizing the solutions. So we talked about deploying solution or the obstacle that we are facing for deploying our solutions there. Now, if I work out solutions and I don't want to be technology specific, that applies to Finnish condition where I work, then it can't be applied in south of Europe where I'm from. So, but luckily the solutions is often made of different bits and pieces, and if you change one, then it can be applied somewhere else. So together with integration, because integration is still something very local, we need to broaden our view also. So talking about localization of then solutions probably.
Well, thank you very much. I think we'll stop here to leave the room for the other session. I'd like to thank you for your comments. I think it's quite interesting that comments came from the technological point of view, but also from the market and the market failures that we need to address. And I would have liked to have more time to discuss this, because that's quite interesting. And the link to industrial policy, I think that was flagged by many speakers in the room and on the panel here. I think it's a very important area, of course, which we will look into. And we will look into all the comments that came from the public consultation, which again is still open. So I think for those of you who haven't had time to take the floor, please go on the website, look at the orientations of Horizon Europe. You still have until the 4th of October to send your comments. That's a fantastic opportunity to co-create the future strategic plan, and then the work program, of course, and then, of course, the call for proposal for the next 4 years. If you're interested in the preliminary results of the public consultation, you can find them on the website as well. And the plan will identify the major policy drivers, the strategic policy priorities, and the targeted impacts that we want. We hope that it will be endorsed by the next Commission towards the end of this year, subject to agreement between the Parliament and the Council on the EU's long-term budget. I'd like to thank you all for your participation. A big thank to the speakers, of course. A big thank to Piero De Bonis, also helped me organize that session. Thank you for your participation. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.